forward if you want, Bonnie. So thank you guys for being here. Welcome to the webinar. Hey, Jane, I'm super excited to get to share with you. Um, and just tell you a little bit about this incredible understanding that we share. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my school. If you're new to me and this understanding and this work, which I know a lot of you are, um, even if you aren't new, please put your questions. I want to get to some questions in the last maybe, and I'll stay on as long as there are questions, but I'm going to share, I'm going to have some people from my school share for about the first maybe 45, 50 minutes or so. And then I want to get straight into your questions. So at any point as I'm talking here, anything that comes to mind that you want to ask about or just mention, you can put that in the Q&A. And I won't see it right away, but at the end, I'll be able to look at all those and I'll get to your questions. So I definitely want to make this as interactive and like helpful to you as it can be. So if anything comes up, just toss it in that Q&A. So so thank you guys so much for being here. What we're really going to look at here is how change happens, how lasting change happens. So we've all changed. We've all done things and made change happen and done all the strategies and tools and techniques to try to end a habit or get rid of anxiety or whatever it is that we're up against, get out of some kind of stuckness. And I know we've all had that experience of feeling like, okay, maybe there's a little traction, maybe something lasted for a little bit of time, maybe even kind of a lot of time, but maybe it just didn't feel as deep and it wasn't as complete as it can be. And I know many of you probably know me, but some of you might not. And I lived with anxiety for most of my life. That anxiety took a lot of forms. It took the form of just being nervous and overthinking everything and being very much in my head for a lot of years. Then I did things like smoking and drinking too much and all kinds of things to try to calm that anxiety throughout the years. And eventually it started showing up in an eating disorder and all kinds of eating things that just, were really, really painful. And those in and of themselves looked like this other problem I now had to solve. So not only was I an anxious person, as I thought, not only did I have all this horrible feeling that I had to do something with, but now I had this habit and that habit, and all these other things. And that's how it looks to us, right? We get so caught up in what it is that we're experiencing in any given moment. And that stuff starts to look like such a problem. It starts to look like one more thing and one more thing. And it starts to look all really separate and distinctive. Like there's one cure for smoking, and then there's one cure for a binge eating disorder, and then there's something completely different for depression, something different for anxiety. And what that does for us, I think, is just add so much more to our minds, because again, now we're damaged and flawed, and now we have all these other things to solve and fix. And what we, in our innocence, our innocent misunderstanding, what we don't see is that all of these issues that we find ourselves in, especially these habits and addictions that we find ourselves in, they're not another problem. They're our best attempt at a solution to help ourselves get back home. And anxiety and depression aren't problems. They really aren't. They create problems for us. They sure feel like problems. I know they do. But they are us feeling natural, normal, safe human experience and just being in misunderstanding about it. And when I say misunderstanding, and please don't take this personally. So everything that I'm going to share here today is not personal. It's not about you. It's not specific to you. It's not about exactly what you're dealing with. Every single thing I'm going to share here is universal, meaning all humans who ever walk the face of the earth feel stuff in a similar way. We all work in the same way. And that's what I want to start to point to, is how we work. Because when we see more about how human beings work, everything works easier and better. And we aren't afraid of what's going on because we deeply understand it. I think if you ask anyone out there, do you deeply understand how human beings work? We might think we know some stuff, but most of us would have to say, no, I don't really get. Like, why do I feel the stuff I feel? Like, where does it come from? What is it made of? Those kinds of questions. Who am I really beneath all this experience? I think in general, I mean, I still won't know all that stuff and like have the market cornered on that or feel like, okay, I got that down. But I tell you, I know I have a sense of it so much more than I did 8, 9, 10, 15 years ago when I was really, really caught up in these issues. And as that sense of how we work and what's already working all the time in all humans, that universal way that we work, as that sense has become more, it just kind of come to life as it's just sort of felt more familiar and like, okay, I think I see something about what's going on here. Anxiety, overthinking, worrying, all the habits that I picked up to try to deal with my anxiety and overthinking and worrying have fallen away. And I didn't have to apply a patch or a set of behavioral steps or change my mindset. It had nothing to do with doing anything at the psychological level. It wasn't a psychological thing. It was deeper than that. It was truly seeing how we operate, seeing how we work. So that's what I want to start to share a little bit here. Um, and then, as I think I mentioned, I'm going to share a little bit about my school that opens today. I open the school twice each year. I'll share a little bit at the end about that. I have some students and some comments from some of the students on their experience. You can kind of get to see it through their eyes. But I just really want you to know that even if the school is nowhere on your radar, you're not interested at all, hang out for as long as it makes sense and see what you can kind of feel and hear in this conversation, because it truly is. I know it's so cliche, but it really is life-changing stuff. It's changed my life completely, my experience of life completely. It feels easier and more peaceful and like I'm moving with the current. And I never thought that was possible. And I've seen it. I've shared this with thousands of people in the past 8 years. I've been sharing this, and I've seen it change countless lives in huge ways sometimes. Not in ways where, they change their job and go marry the person of their dreams and like buy their dream home in Switzerland or something. Like, that's not what I mean. This isn't like you go get life kind of stuff. People do tend to go get life when we're not so scared. So, some of that happens, but that's not what I mean when I say it changes lives. When I say it changes lives, more how that looks and shows up is that we just feel at peace. We feel like ourselves again. That's something I hear all the time. Oh, I feel at home. I feel like myself again. I feel at home in my own skin. Like, this feels right. So those are the kind of feelings, even as you're just starting to listen to this today, that I want you to start to notice, because you'll hear them in what's being shared. So when I talk about, let me just make sure my camera's good. When I talk about how we work, seeing how we work, it's so interesting because we don't really know that we don't know how we work. Most people probably don't ever think about this stuff, or at least not that much, and maybe not at all until we have some kind of issue. If we come up against depression or anxiety or an addiction, then we might start to give a little thought to how we work. But even then, most often what happens is we just start to think, how do I fix this? And that's, of course, right? It's the most normal, logical direction in the world. How do I fix this? I don't like what I'm feeling. I don't like what I'm thinking. I don't like what I'm doing. So let me look out here and find a fix and apply it. So all of our change attempts, for the most part, see if you can see something I don't. But when I look out at the world and how everyone is trying to feel better and have a nicer life and find freedom from these issues, it's all about manipulating something. It's about manipulating our thoughts, feelings, or behavior. I don't like, again, how I'm thinking, feeling, or behaving. Let me see what I can find to change that. So we look to behavioral strategies. We download apps. We find new plans. We put ourselves on schedules. and plan. We have these whole things. This is what I'm going to do, and for this long and this often. And we just go to work in that way. Or we look to our thoughts. It's all psychology, right? Thoughts, feelings, behaviors. So we look maybe more at the psychological side of things, at our thoughts, and we say, oh, I need a new mindset. That's what it is. And trust me, there is tons and tons of stuff out there to support that will come up and say, yes, that's exactly what you need is a new mindset. So you have these thoughts over here and you don't like those. Let's tweak them. Let's make these thoughts over here a little bit nicer. Instead of thinking that, you don't like this about yourself or you're insecure or whatever, you have this issue, let's change it to this and see if that sticks. And, that's just kind of the best that we can see to do. On the face of it, it has a little bit of logic, maybe. It kind of makes sense. Seems like it might work. So that's what we go with. Or at the feeling level, so that's behavior, thought. At the feeling level, we're saying, I don't like how I feel. I don't like this urge, this craving, this anxiety, this feeling of sadness or heaviness or depression or whatever it might be. And so we go gather ways to change our feeling. We learn to urge surf. I don't know, ride a feeling, whatever it is that people do with their emotions and their feelings. We bring in these strategies and practices that either try to change our feelings or help us to manage our feelings or feel our feelings in a different way. And all of those things I just mentioned, I mean, they make so much sense from one way of seeing it. But they're all very effortful. They take work and they're all about taking something that's already come to life within you. Thought, mindset, feeling, emotion, behavior. It's already come to life. And in most cases, it's done and over with. Probably in all cases, really. It's come to life, it's done and over with. And then we come in and we want to apply some patches to fix it. So it's done and over, and we're focused on it. One, we're calling it a problem because we don't like it. I don't think I should feel this way. This shouldn't be happening. We're just full of, this is a problem and that's a problem and I shouldn't be thinking this way and I don't like to feel that way. So in a sense, I mean, that's fine if you feel that way, that's your opinion, but we have these opinions of our experience and we take them really seriously. And then we go out and try to change our experience so it matches us so we have a nicer opinion about it. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's the way I want to act. I don't want to not work on my book for a week. I'm going to call that procrastination. What I want it to look like is that I get up and work on my book every day. Okay, now I'm happy. So let me find these ways to trick myself basically into working on my book every day or going to yoga every day or whatever it is that you want to do. It's all kind of at that word manipulation. I know that's not a nice word, but that's basically what it is, right? We're trying to change something that's already come to life and is wanting to move through. And so it takes willpower, it takes discipline, it takes, at the very least, attention, some effort, which is ironic because when we're feeling lots of depression or anxiety or caught up in a habit or craving, the last thing we have at our disposal is more resources to bring in effort, to apply willpower, to apply discipline. That's when we have the least discipline, the least capacity for willpower or effort. So these outside in kind of ways that we try to change, they're not sustainable. They're just not. When we have enough energy, we can do the right things and it could look like we changed, but then what happens? We all have been through this. I know you have. I've been through it umpteen times. Oh, yay, it worked. I changed. Oh, wait a minute. Didn't work. Didn't last. So not only are the effort, the discipline, willpower, all these strategies, not only are they not sustainable because of what they require, but they're not deep. We're applying they're band-aids. We're applying a patch or a fix, trying to manipulate something, again, that's come to life, but we aren't seeing things differently. We don't see ourselves. We don't understand ourselves any better. We've just changed a behavior. We don't get why we're feeling the way we are. We don't see anything differently about ourselves. It still looks personal. It still looks meaningful. We've just maybe applied some kind of tweak that may or may not have worked. So to kind of get a feel for that distinction and how important it is, think about anything, like um, we can learn things and do things by conditioning alone. Like if every time, my kid doesn't say please or thank you, I say please, say thank you. Like pretty soon they're going to get that, and they might start to fall in the pattern of that, and those words might start to come out of their mouth more often. Hasn't worked that well yet, but it could, right? In theory, that's the way it could work. We could kind of condition something. We condition things in ourselves all the time. But conditioning is still pretty shallow. It has nothing to do with what we see or deeply understand. It's just a behavior fix. So another example, like with my kids, this is one's coming up a lot lately because my daughter, who's 9, is in the thick of learning her multiplication tables. So she has to know quickly, 6 times 3, 6 times 4, 6 times 5. So she's going around kind of memorizing these basically, which is okay. Maybe that has some value. She can spit them out on the test. But it's tough. If it's memorization, if it's like at that level, that psychological level, conditioning, memorizing, doing differently, mantra in our world, right? Mantra, say an affirmation, go take a deep breath, do this strategy, do that strategy. It's going to work when it works, and it's probably not going to work a lot of times. So if all she has is memorization of her multiplication tables, when she doesn't eat a good breakfast or doesn't get good sleep or is just in a crabby mood and then she has the test, well, her memory is very affected by that stuff. Her knowledge isn't any deeper than memory. But when she comes to see the logic in math and get why, oh, okay, here's how this all works. There's a logic to it. Here's what's beneath it. Here's why 6 times 2 equals 12. Here's why 6 times 3 equals 18. She can start to see it like in a bigger picture in her mind, building on itself. Well, now she has something. It's like that saying that everyone says, about teaching someone to fish rather than giving them fish. That's exactly what this is about. It's about seeing how we work, because when we deeply get where our experience comes from and who we are, well, we don't need a patch. We don't need a fix. And that's the difference. Some of you I know have been watching my Change That Sticks video series. I really encourage you to watch that. There's only one set of truth. There's only, the certain principles, and I'm pointing to the same thing here that I do in those videos. But I think the way those videos unfold and kind of point to this is really helpful. So there's the link. Bonnie just popped it in the chat. If you haven't seen those, I really encourage you to watch them. And those videos in conjunction with what I'm talking about here, really, really powerful stuff, because again, it's all building toward helping us see, oh, okay, here's what I've been doing to try to get over my problems. Here's why it hasn't been working. And here's a new place to look instead. So let's start to look toward how we do work. We know how we think we work. We think that we have problems and flaws. And if you're struggling with anxiety or a habit or an addiction or depression, that's about you. We think in general, and if you don't think this, wonderful. I'm just going to speak in general terms about most people I meet until they come across this understanding. We say, I have anxiety. It's my anxiety. I'm having panic attacks. I have this habit. I have an eating disorder, my eating disorder. I have, I drink too much, whatever it is. There's a sense of ownership in that because it looks meaningful and personal. These look like our issues. They look like it had something to do with us. So what if they don't? What if, let's start to really look at this. What if you and all people, again, every single person who's ever been alive on this planet, what I'm sharing here applies to, because it's beyond details. It's deeper than details. It's about how we're designed, how all human beings are designed. What if we all have complete health, complete, like resilience doesn't even cut it as a word, but like we have this deep inner resilience where anything that shows up in our experience shows up and doesn't affect us in a deep, permanent way. So we talk about this with kids all the time, right? Kids are they're so resilient. They feel all kinds of stuff, big, huge emotions, because they're not managing or trying to control them yet. So they just feel what's there. And then you see this, if you know little kids, I'm talking like 2 and under, especially, they feel this stuff. And then you watch them just bounce back home. There's a place they bounce back to. I just called it home, call it whatever you want. But they have a temper tantrum, and then you see it kind of clear and they come back. They get super excited and happy and they're jumping all over the place. And then you see them kind of settle and they come back. And the question is, what is it that they're coming back to? And do we have that? And the answer is yes, we do. We adults are every bit as resilient and innately healthy, emotionally healthy, mentally healthy as a little child. 100%. We all have this place within us that we come back to. Now, I know you might not feel like you do. Probably most of us don't. It might look like we've been in our particular brand of hell for a really long time and we don't come back. Like people tell me all the time. And I know this is partly just our language, but it's also how it actually looks and feels to us. People say like, no, I have been deeply depressed for 15 years and I never feel good. I have been riddled with anxiety for this long. I've been stuck in this habit for 3 decades, they'll say, and there's no freedom from it. And yet, when I've kind of dug into this with those people, with everyone, there's a way in which people can notice, and you look for it yourself in yourself that, yeah, maybe life is really hard. Maybe we feel super caught up in whatever we're caught up in. But there are moments when we feel ourselves kind of come back to a place that I'm going to call home. Just like those little kids, throw a temper tantrum, big, huge cry, kicking and screaming, and then you watch it wash through them. You see it. We see it so clearly in them again because they're not interfering with it. So we get to actually kind of in a really cool way see how our experience, thought, feeling, behavior wants to move through us when we aren't afraid of it, taking it personally, trying to stifle it, trying to make it look different. When we're out of the way of all of that, it moves through and then you see us come back home. So no matter what you're in or how long you've been in it, there's a momentum in you that will pull you back toward home, and it's always working and it's always happening, and it works that way because you are healthy, because you are a human being who isn't any of that experience. Sometimes people just feel it as like, I'm full of anxiety, and then when I start to fall asleep my anxiety goes from a 10 to an 8.5, and then I fall asleep. Hey, I'll take it, right? Like that can move a lot more. But if you can even notice a 10 to a 9 and you didn't do anything to make that happen, incredible. That's what we're talking about. When you just have a moment. I shared this understanding with my daughter's Girl Scouts troop last week, a bunch of 9-year-old girls, and we were talking about like this feeling. I had them just close their eyes and just get quiet for a minute. And I said, just notice beneath all your thoughts, beneath your feelings, what do you feel there? I mean, it took kids are a lot closer to this in many ways, again, only because they haven't lived in their heads so much or for so long. So it took them seconds to say, oh, that's a nice feeling. Yeah, I feel it's cozy in there. It's nice. It's quiet. But you could see it. It was very familiar to them. And it can be familiar to us too. It's familiar to me now, and it wasn't. I've seen it become more and more familiar to so many people, thousands of people. It's by starting to see how we work. So, so we are full of this health and that nice, peaceful feeling. That's you. And everything else that changes. So your thoughts, your feelings, your behaviors, your urges, your cravings, your insecurities, everything that you're going to say is a problem, your physical body, the health of your physical body, all of that completely always in flux. Moment to moment to moment, it's changing. right? It's always changing. And there's a part that doesn't change. And that's the part we're talking about. And as we start to get more familiar with that part that doesn't change, and we start to feel, okay, there is something besides my mind just talking all the time. There's something in there. It's like the space between our mind talking all the time and that place within us, we feel that difference. Right now, you might not feel that difference because we just live in our heads. We don't always. We always fall out of our thinking and feel peaceful for moments, but it's not our fault. Things happen, we get scared, we try to figure it out. We're told from a young age, think about it, use your head, figure it out, and we're told how resourceful we are and how we're in charge and we can determine how we feel, and all of this stuff we're told. It's not all bad, but it leads us into our heads. It leads us to live from our heads way more often than is helpful. So that's the only difference between us and what we would call a super resilient 9-year-old Girl Scout. Look at her. She has no problems in the world. The only difference is that we have this thinking and feeling and memories and stuff that comes up. And when it comes up, not that it comes up, but when that comes up, it looks to us as if it's about us. It looks meaningful. It looks like it's telling us something about life out there. Like, oh, I feel insecure. Yeah, I am not good enough. No. What's really happening is that you're a human being, and all human beings experience insecure thought. Sometimes we think they're us. We take them seriously. Other times we don't. Kids, we don't. They let that stuff come and go. So there's this way in which our experience, again, it comes up, it comes to life in such a huge way within us. And we have this case of mistaken identity. It's like we think that's us. What our mind is saying is us, but it isn't us at all. We've just forgotten who we are. And we've gotten really involved in what our mind is telling us and the pictures that it's painting and what it says about us and our life. And we start to think that our worries and our thoughts and our concerns and our memories are there for a reason. Well, why else would I be thinking this? People say all the time, right? Well, I don't know, but maybe that's just how a human mind works. Human minds travel all over the place, all day, every day. And we feel every single little moment of our felt experience of life is basically that component of where our mind is traveling. So we feel only our own thinking in each and every moment. We feel where our mind goes. But the thing is, we've forgotten that it works that way. So that's what we start to come back and wake up to and remember, oh, I'm feeling where my mind's traveling. And that doesn't necessarily mean anything about me or my life. It's just where my mind is traveling. I don't need to respect that so much. But we forget that. I'll show you my favorite. You'll see this a lot, and you've probably seen this already, but this is my favorite little teaching tool for where our mind goes, right? So this thing's always talking. It's going here, it's going to the past, it's pulling up memories, it's just all over the place. And we see through our eyes, we see what this is saying. And that's not a problem. That's a beautiful thing. We have an amazing design. This is how kids work. This is how babies work. This is how 200-year-olds work, if there were any. This is how every single one of us works, right? So it's not a problem. But what happens is that we hear and see through all of this, and we start to think that's us. So you start to feel anxious, or like, oh, I need that cigarette, or I want to eat this, or I don't like this, or I do like this, I need more of that, whatever all that stuff is. And we don't see it as this. We don't see it as our mind just traveling somewhere like all human minds do. We take that so seriously and personally, and we think, oh, I do need that. I better do what my mind is telling me to do. And that literally is the only problem any of us ever has, ever, is that we have thought brought to life, and we don't see it as thought brought to life. We see it as about us and coming from the world out there. So we better jump in and fix it and change it. So let me pull this back to finding freedom from habits and addiction and anxiety for a minute. I'll say this maybe through some of my own story. Is that like I mentioned, I was in a lot of anxiety. Like I just had a busy mind and all kinds of. I was an overthinker from a very young age, and it showed up early on in my life through like little twitches and little innocent things that when a parent would leave, I would feel sick to my stomach and I didn't know why, or I would get headaches and all this stuff that now I know is anxiety, but I didn't know that no one knew that at the time. So I had all this just stuff going on, right? And it's all just a bunch of thinking that was all this. I can remember when it started. We don't need to remember when it started or what brought it on, but sometimes it's helpful if you can. And I can remember feeling free and bouncing through life as little kids do. And then something happened in my family and it was different from that moment on. And it wasn't that thing that happened in my family that because it happened to all of us and we all had different experiences. It was what my mind started saying. My mind started saying, better be good now. You better make sure they still care. Better be noticed. Better do this. Better do that. And this got louder and louder. And not only did it get louder and louder, but I started to listen to this more than that peaceful feeling that was within me. So I thought this was me, as we do, right? So this got louder and heavier, and life got harder because that's what would happen if you're listening to everything your mind says. Every little insecure thought and worry, like, why is this here? It must be true. And I was running around trying to manage things on the outside to try to get this to be quiet. And what a mess that is. So anyway, it showed up in all kinds of forms, from the twitches to the little physical issues to panic attacks and agoraphobia to eating disorders, all kinds of different forms it took. Um, and and again, it felt so real and personal, and like it must be telling. Why else would it be there? It must be telling me something about life. And so I just did, as we do, anything I could to manage it. And the things that we stumble upon are the things that we end up being addicted to or feeling like we're addicted to. And really, what that means is that this thing looks like our source of well being. So I would try to control things, get my mind quiet. One of those things happened to be food, had nothing to do with food, but it was there. So I could try to control that. And then that felt really bad. So then not controlling food felt better. So then I would not control food in a really extreme way. And, it was all just looking for a way to just feel like myself again. I didn't know it was in there. I didn't know, just like those little 9-year-old Girl Scouts, that I could close my eyes and just feel it at any moment. I kind of couldn't because I was so convinced that this was me that it's like all I could hear and see, and no one told me otherwise. And so, again, it's like, oh, and now I have an eating disorder, and now I have this, and now I have that. And so it was more therapists and more fixes and all of that. And coming across this understanding, and I'm sharing my story, but I mean, this is everyone I meet. You can put in different details. Everyone has their own details, but it is literally the every single one of the thousands of people that I've personally shared this with, and everyone else, and the other 7.5 billion of us out there. It's all the same. I stumbled upon food, made no sense, had no logic, no reason behind it really. Other people stumble upon heroin. Other people stumble upon buying things on eBay. Other people stumble upon having affairs, working all the time. Like, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. We're looking at what's beneath that. We're looking at the fact that you think this is you, and it feels really, really bad. And it only makes sense that when we feel bad, we'll do anything we can to start to feel better. So, then that's where all the change attempts that go wrong come in, because it's like, oh, well, let me try acupuncture. That'll fix it. Well, that doesn't fix anything, because again, even if no offense to acupuncture, I'm sure it's helpful as a surface thing, but it didn't show me anything different about my experience. So even if acupuncture helped me settle down, which it did in some ways, as soon as like my mind's going to get busy again, and as soon as it does, I'm going to go right back to believing it. See, that's the problem with all the kind of short-term fixes. You can take drugs. I mean, prescription drugs. You can take any drugs. You can take street drugs. You can take prescription drugs. You can do tapping. You can say mantras. You can take deep breaths. You can go for walks. You can do anything. You can change your thoughts. You can do anything you want to do, and it's going to help as long as that's in place. As long as your mind is quiet, you're not going to have your habits or anxiety, because your habits and anxiety only come from your mind to begin with. They're only made of in this moment experience. As soon as your mind settles down, poof, they're gone. You literally don't have them in those moments. So we can take those things. It's kind of like within this visual of just like a hyper dog, like just throwing it like Quaaludes or something. Like it'll just chill out, right, and be quiet. But that's just a drugged dog. That's not a dog that's like actually calmed down at all. And that's kind of what all our change attempts are about. It's like we pop a Quaalude and, work for as long as it works. But when you come to, and when you are in another tricky situation, you're in front of your trigger, or you have another down day, or you have another panic attack, what happens? We've all seen it thousands of times, right? Oh, I knew this wasn't going to work. I'm not okay. And then we just go in the opposite direction. And it's just because we think our experience is us. Our experience is not us, and it doesn't need to be managed by us because it's self-correcting. 100%. This got a little left. Oh, see, it fizzles out. It's exactly like our experience. We feel stuff, it's brought to life. That energy that things experience to life, it doesn't sit stagnant. It's always moving. And that's a huge, really, really, like this alone, gigantic, such a helpful thing to kind of feel into and see if you can see the truth in this yourself, because it will feel like our experience sits stagnant. I would have told you, no, I have been anxious all day long. I have been in this urge, and if I don't go eat something or decide to never eat again, it's not going anywhere. I thought my actions had to make it shift. Not true. It doesn't work that way. It wants to move. But we have to understand how we work, and when we understand more about how we work, we have the eyes to see it move. See, it's kind of like, kind of like that peaceful place we talked about. We can get so caught up that we swear all day, every day, it doesn't exist in me. And we're kind of right. I mean, it is there, it does exist. But when someone says, I haven't felt peace in 40 years, I kind of believe them. That's their experience. Now, that's not their design. Says nothing about what's possible for them. It says nothing about what they can feel one moment later, but they're telling me their experience. Our experience comes from habitual thought. But once we have the eyes to see, oh, all of this stuff's not me, it's incredible how it works. I don't know how to explain how it works, but it's like this is talking, and we're like, hey, that's me, here I am. And as we see more about what's going on and how universal this is, and it has nothing to do with us, it's like this starts moving. And then we're like, seriously, I thought I was you and you were me. You like this thing? I'm not a hunk of plastic. There's so much more to this, but we're just like this with it until we aren't. And I know this is the craziest webinar you've ever seen, but this is how change happens, is we go from this to this simply by insightfully starting to realize, wow, that's how I've worked all along. And not just me, that's how we've all worked all along. By seeing what's already always there all the time, just having the eyes to look in that direction rather than back here in the direction of problem. I have to fix it. Problem. I have to fix it. Start to look more and more here. Yeah, but what's beneath that? What's that problem really made of? You don't need to worry about that. It fixes itself. Come back over here. And that's kind of what this whole process is it's like, come back over here. Come back over here. And not to, again, it's not conditioning you to see it this way. It's waking you up from this. And it doesn't take long. It's not hard. Because we know this. We know it just like those 9-year-olds. I mean, they just had it like that. Like, oh, I remember. They're starting to get in their heads, and they're getting insecure, and they're comparing themselves to other girls at this age. But they don't have the experience that we have at that. So they're much closer to like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So I want to I want to say a little bit about how this starts to look and give you some more concrete examples of how this might look for others. Um, and I have a couple stories in mind and something I want to read you. And I also want to take your questions. So again, if at any point if you have questions, go ahead and put them. I see some people are putting them in the chat. That's okay. Put them in the Q&A is preferable if you want to toss them in there, and I'll be able to answer your questions. So let me turn it over for a minute to Missy. Missy is a student in the Little School of Big Change, and she's new to the school. Was it like November or no, like January, Missy?
January.
January. So she's only been in the school for a short time, but she volunteered to come here and share a little bit about her experience, which I'm so grateful for. So yeah, I'll let her tell you a little bit about how it's gone for her.
So is this volume good, or am I too loud?
No, it's good.
It's good. Okay. So I came, like Amy said, just in January. So I've only been at this not even 2 months, really. And I came to it because of a chronic health issue that I have been struggling with for about, oh gosh, a year and 4 months, I guess. And I was just suffering so much. And I fell into sort of a deep depression as a result directly of my chronic health issues, because I thought that is what everyone with this kind of chronic health issue would feel like, horrible and suffering and depressed and anxious. And I thought there's got to be something better than this in my life. I had this different life before the chronic health issue, so surely there must be some way back to being me. And so I emailed Amy. I found this somehow. I can't remember how I found it, but I emailed Amy and I said, I'm desperate. You have to let me in your school. I know it doesn't open until March, but I need access because I'm desperate. I need help. And she let me in. And I remember one weekend really spilling into like 3 days after the weekend, just binge watching every video I could. And I joined the forum right away, and I started participating in the forum, and people started reaching out to me and helping. And I will say the biggest shifts, the hugest things I have seen so far in this very short journey I've been on is I am completely off my antidepressant. I was on Lexapro. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. I was on an antidepressant, and I'm completely off. And I didn't have really any side effects at all, all the things you read about. I just felt, I knew who I was. I knew where my okayness was as I weaned off of it. That's one of the biggest things, the biggest, hugest things I've seen since being in this school is being able to go off antidepressants completely, 100%. And I have no intentions of ever in my life going back on. And I feel really good. I don't feel depressed anymore. I still have days, because I'm human, where I get bummed out about my physical symptoms. But even those, I'm starting to see sort of fade a little bit or go longer in between flare-ups. The other big shift I've seen, again, in just this little 7 weeks or whatever I've been in it, is I sleep again. I had horrible insomnia, just chronic. Again, I think it kind of went along with my chronic health issues. I was so stressed. I would wake up stressed. I would go to bed stressed. I would wake up at 3 stressed. I was in this chronic, horrible state of stress, looking at my symptoms. How are my symptoms right now? How are my physical symptoms? How's my health today? How do I feel today? Can I handle the day? So the biggest things I've seen are just coming off my antidepressants, and not truly, like, I don't feel depressed anymore at all. I don't. The depression's gone. It's gone. The sleep is back. I sleep like a baby now. And I had quit work back when this was at its worst, because there was no way I could work. My health symptoms, my physical symptoms were just so severe. And the depression just was crushing. I couldn't work. And I have 3 kids and a dog and a house and all the other stuff to take care of. And now I'm back at work again. which is great. And it's nice easing back in and working with clients again and giving presentations. Um, I just gave a presentation, not for work, but I just gave a presentation last night to a group of high school juniors, all about this concept, all about how we work from the inside out. And their cute little faces, their little 17-year-old faces were just dumbfounded. They had never heard of such craziness. And I said, and I had all my little charts, and I did the iceberg that Amy does, I did the snow globe. And I said, it sounds so crazy when you first hear it. But if I can get it and come off antidepressants and sleep again and go back to work, I really thought I was a lost cause. I really did. I mean, at one point this past summer, I told my husband, I honestly don't see a reason to go on other than the fact that we have 3 kids. That was the only reason I saw to continue getting up in the morning, was because I had 3 kids. I saw no hope. Now I see a really good future. I see that I still have a ways to go in terms of all consistently seeing things, but I've had some really big insights that I have felt so deeply, like my innate wellness. Like, it's not going anywhere. I'm okay, even in my worst physical flares. Again, which I see less and less of as I settle down. And I see other people in the group who have had severe health issues. And they give me so much inspiration, so much hope, because I can see now, as they've taken the pressure off themselves, um, the health condition just fades away. It falls away. I think one of my favorite phrases somebody said to me in the forum, and then I'll stop because I know Amy has a lot more for you. I was kind of freaking out. I can't remember when it was, maybe a week ago or 2 weeks ago. I just was having one of those days where my symptoms, my physical health symptoms, were flaring up. And, I'm human. I just kind of forgot who I was. I went back to the chatter a little bit. And someone said, Missy, if you think your symptoms are causing your suffering, you're just wrong. Like, you're just wrong. And I don't know why that was so comforting to me, but it was just this massive shift. And I would say in about 20 minutes, every single one of my physical symptoms was gone. And I went from like a severe waking up to a severe flare of physical symptoms to literally no symptoms the rest of that day and for a couple of days after. And they still wax and wane, they still come and go, but I really do have hope. I truly do, that the more I see, the more this really settles into me deeply, the more consistently these symptoms are just going to sort of fall away on their own. And I don't have to worry about letting them go. They will let me go. So I can't say enough about this, because just the fact that I don't feel depressed anymore, and I feel so much hope and happiness, and that I'm working and my kids see me smile, it's been huge. And it's only been since January. So thank you, Amy.
That's awesome. Thank you, Missy. Wow, it's so amazing to hear. I love what you said about and I mean I've seen your change taking place, but I didn't know exactly all the details and kind of what you shared here as much, but um I love how you said, like, when we kind of just start to relax, we see that. So in the school there are people with anxiety that's led to physical health issues like Missy, and depression and all of that. There's people with, again, habits and addictions, which are all the same. It all comes down to the same thing. We're all dealing with different things, and the beauty in being in a group where everybody's got a different kind of surface level thing, but we're all looking at the same underlying cause is amazing. Because somebody could talk to Missy and say, oh, your physical symptoms, if you think that's causing your suffering, you're just wrong, but it's harder to see that sometimes when our issues match. So, we see things so much in others when they're not exactly like us. And that's one of my favorite benefits of this school, is that everybody's there with slightly different things, we're all exactly the same beneath those things. But I love what you're saying, but how you used to wake up and it would be, and me too, oh my gosh, like, how is it today? How am I doing today? How am I feeling? How are things going? Like, do I have an urge? Do I have a craving? Am I depressed? Am I anxious? Like, that just starts from the minute we wake up. It's just, this just gets going. And so many of us, we just live in this for a really long time, or just a worry, just worrying about something that looks like it's a real thing out in the world that's making us worry, and it isn't. It's just a hunk of plastic chattering teeth. Missy said, how are my symptoms and how am I doing and what about this and that, and I can't go to work. Mine said a completely different story, but it was the exact same thing we were experiencing. Everyone else too. Some people talk about alcohol or this or that, or their past trauma, or their issues with their mom, or whatever it is, their insecurity, their jealousy. The details don't matter. We're looking at what's happening at this level. So it's so obvious in how you shared that, Missy. Like, well, yeah, when you wake up and your mind's like, how am I doing? How's it going? Do the scan. How do we think we're going to feel, right? But that's what happens, is we start to see that that's what's going on, and that just gets quiet. It just gets quieter. And then it just kind of moves over here a little bit, and it's amazing. So thank you so much for sharing that. I wanted to read one other post. This was just posted on our forum on Friday, and it really blew me away. And I asked the woman permission. I'm not going to say her name, but I asked her if I could read it. It's kind of short, but it's just, again, she just spontaneously shared this on our forum, and um, this is her story. So she says, I was in the Little School of Big Change class last October. I came here with zero knowledge of this understanding. I just prayed desperately for God to save my life. I was at rock bottom. I was not suicidal. However, I was very close to no longer wanting to be on this earth. The world was dark and foggy. Anxiety was killing me to the point where everyday tasks were just taxing. I was at the doctor all the time, and I'm still paying for emergency visits. I heard Amy say something in her sponsored post advertising the Little School of Big Change that triggered something in me. What it was, I don't know. I didn't have the money to really take the school. I told no one what I was doing. When I say this understanding saved me, it did in every single way. I had a huge learning curve with all of it. I asked many questions. I read every post. When I was at my bottom, I took an anxiety quiz online. I was at 58%, meaning I had severe anxiety. I took the quiz again recently just to see what my score was, and now I'm at 14%. The thing is, I'm okay. I always was. It was just thought. So for me, it took from October to now, and this was last week that she posted this, to know without a doubt that I'm okay. Anxiety creeps in, but I'm not afraid. I know it's my thinking. I just check in with myself to see what's going on to cause me to feel off, and I check out far less often. Although I'm preaching to the choir right now with all of you, because this is in our forum, I have to say that if I could get through this, anyone could. It takes as long as needed for it to sink in. But once it does, oh man, what a beautiful life it is. This post, Missy's story, we've seen it over and over and over in the 2 years that the school's been here. And it's not about the Little School of Big Change. It's not about me. It's because we're healthy already. I really want to stress that. Like, you please, again, like I said, if you don't join the school, wonderful. Please know that you have this within you. Just know that, because once you know that and you sense that, you will have the eyes to see it and feel it, and you'll recognize it more and more. This understanding, seeing more about how we work, what it means and what it doesn't mean when our mind's wandering all over the place, how healthy and well we actually are, because it's not that way to us much of the time. But it is really, really good news when we start to really get a sense for the health and the resilience that's always there, that nothing we've ever faced has left a dent. We've gone through hard stuff. We feel hard stuff all the time. We think unpleasant stuff. It's in motion, and it's not us. It's not about us. When we start to really get the feel for that, and that's just what this understanding does, these stories are common, very common. And it's just kind of waking up to what's there already. It's kind of like like one of the best ways I can describe it is it's like being on a roller coaster where there's all kinds of ups and downs because life's kind of a roller coaster. There's always going to be stuff happening. We're always going to be thinking worried thoughts and these thoughts and those thoughts. But knowing that you're on a roller coaster versus not. If you're getting whipped all over the place and you think life is doing it, you think, wow, I'm weak. I can't handle it. Life is doing this to me. You're a complete victim and it's terrifying. But when you're getting whipped all over the place by life, that happens sometimes, but you know what's going on. You know, oh, this is my mind going over there. That, this, I'm okay. This isn't actually hurting me. This isn't about me. We're all the same. When you start to know this understanding, it's like being on a roller coaster sometimes, but you know you're on a roller coaster. So no matter how scared you get, you're pretty sure you're going to pull into the station in like 2 or 3 minutes and probably alive. Like it just takes so much off your mind. It's taken so much off my mind. I can't even remember how life used to feel before. I don't want to. I don't want to. I'm reminded sometimes, and seeing people that are kind of new to this. And oh man, I remember when it felt like that. And it just doesn't have to. There's nothing special about me, nothing special about this woman, nothing special about Missy. It's just how we're all designed. So let me thank you, Missy. Let me tell you a little bit about the school, and then I'm going to go to your questions, and I want to take as many questions as I can. So, the Little School of Big Change is a 6-week course, and it's full of there's a core and an advanced curriculum. So, it's full of short video lessons. They're short, they're like maybe 10 to 12 minutes each of me walking you through this understanding. I come from the place of pretending like no one knows anything. Now, some people are in the school and they have been around this understanding and they just want to hear it, in a different way or just kind of re-immerse themselves in it. And that's beautiful. But I take the position when I'm kind of walking you through this as I created everything that we're just all in the same place, right? We know nothing. And so the videos, there's animations, there's conversations with my colleagues, psychiatrists, psychologists, all kinds of people that take this understanding and they've seen incredible things happen with people across the board, people with addictions, schizophrenia, depression, anxiety, all of those things. They come and they share in the school, and that's all part of the curriculum. So the way the 6-week course works is that each Friday you get about an hour's worth of video content. You watch that on your own. And then each Tuesday and Thursday throughout the course, we have group calls. So we meet, preferably live if you can, but all the time people have to miss the calls, and that's okay. Everything's recorded, so you really don't miss anything. But we have these 2 group calls each week on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And in those calls, I dive deeper into the content. So whatever you just saw from last week, whatever's coming up for you, we really kind of go a little bit deeper into that. I take all the questions that you have and I do some coaching with people. Those calls, whether you're there live or watch it recorded, not, again, it's great to be there live, but every time I run the course, people just watch the recorded material and they get just as much out of it. So those calls though are like the whole soul, I think, of the school, because the content I give is great. Again, it's been tested. I'm very experienced in sharing this understanding. I do the best I can to point here, to keep, like we we're saying, point you toward the health and not in all the problems. That's what happens there. But in those calls, that's where you see people that are just like you from all over the world. There's like 30 plus countries in the school now. People just like you from all over the world, all caught up in their own brand of thinking that looks real. That's all it ever is. And you see them start to wake up from that. It for me too. And I've been doing this for a long time. Like it's an incredible just thing to witness, aside from what you get from it yourself. It's like what we just heard from Missy. I mean, it is an incredible thing to witness. Someone who says, I don't know why I'm here anymore. And within weeks is off their antidepressants and back at work and has a smile on their face all the time. I mean, it's amazing. So you see that in real time on these calls. You get to hear me coach people. And again, whether like that is so valuable because It's great for you to be coached, and everyone would have that opportunity. But even if you don't, to watch someone who's up against something that looks so real to them and so stable and so personal, like, no, this is me, this is my problem, it's not going away, it's not changing. And just to kind of see again, how I see that, because I don't see it that way. I can't. I'm like, my eyes have changed. I can't see someone as having a real stable problem. It just doesn't look that way. It looks like drilled in them. So to see the treatment of that over and over again over 6 weeks, that's where a lot of people say they just have massive insights and they see so much that way. So there's the content, there's the calls, and you get to keep all of that for life. And I do that intentionally because this is the kind of stuff that people tell me all the time they go back to later and it sounded different, or they got so much more out of it the next time around. Um, so you keep all that for life, all of that video content, and the recorded calls are yours to keep. And then we also have a forum. It's a private forum. It's not on Facebook. It's on our website. And on that forum, it's very active, extremely active. I'm on there all the time. I have two coaches, Terry and Amanda, who Amanda has been with the school. You might know her, Amanda Jones, been with the school since I first started it almost 2 years ago, has been through her own 23-year eating disorder, gone, freedom from that. She's written a book about it. She's an incredible coach. Terry, incredible coach. And they're in the forum, helping out, supporting. I'm in there all the time. So that's a place that you can always go to just, there's conversation there, questions. If you need anything personally, you'll get it. So the beauty in the school, those are the three kind of main components. It's designed content to walk you through this understanding from knowing nothing, or and you know nothing, to really starting to get a feel, a solid, helpful feel for how we work. That's what happens in 6 weeks. And then it's support on those calls from me and coaching, and you get to see your classmates going through all that the whole time. And then it's anytime support on that forum. And, it's just a really, it's a really beautiful way to see this stuff. People ask all the time, well, like, how does it work? Like, how do these insights work? Like, how is it that Missy went from where she was in just 7 weeks? And by the way, Missy didn't go through even like this guided version. She just watched the content at home. So she just did that at her own pace. I wasn't there supporting her. I was on the forum and we had some interaction, but it's not the level of support that you get in this school. But people ask all the time, understandably, right? Like, well, how does that happen? Like, what's the mechanism? What's going on there? And the mechanism is that we have insights. We realize, we wake up to what's already wonderful, the health that's already there, the resilience that's already there, and all the things that we think are our flaws and our deep problems, they don't look like that anymore. And then we just start to thrive, because that's the nature of human beings. Human beings are designed to thrive. It's like a plant grows toward the sun. We are designed to grow toward the sun. We've just gotten in the way because we have all these shadows around us that we think are real, and they aren't. So the way a realization or a major transformation like Missy's, like this woman's, like so many of the students we've seen, the way that happens, like what precedes it is we immerse in this. And I like to say sometimes it's like learning a language. Once you become fluent in a language, you don't have to apply that language. You don't have to do, like, you're fluent. You just see the world, like you open your mouth and that language comes out of your mouth. And that's how this is. That's why I created the school rather than just doing private coaching and sharing this in other ways. That's why I created this container of the Little School of Big Change and tested the content, because it is that it walks people through this understanding, so they go from no fluency to perfect fluent, or on their way to perfect fluency, on their way to fluency, so that you see life in a new way. And that, again, it doesn't take effort, it doesn't take reminders or notes or trying, because it's just how you see life, and that's why it's really deep. So the school is open today. It opened today. It's open for registration only for 4 days, and it's only open twice a year. So I let Missy in. That's a major exception. I don't let anybody in besides those two points unless they're really nice, which she was. But it's not ideal that way. I do it this way because it's really ideal. We get to walk through it together. So it's open twice a year. This week is one registration period from today until midnight Eastern time on Thursday, March 14th. At midnight, it closes. And then it'll open again in the fall, so in early October. And, I do that not to like create urgency and all these kind of tactical reasons that marketers talk about, but honestly, just for really, really practical reasons that um, I want to make that tight registration window 4 days, get the people in who are ready for change, who really are ready to see something new, and then just shut that part down so I can completely focus on the students who are there in the school. Because like I mentioned, the forum's very active. Last time in October when we did this live, I averaged 22 hours a week. I was keeping track, 22 hours a week just in the forum. That's not the calls. That's not anything else, So it's a very high level of support, a very interactive, very time intensive thing for me. I absolutely love it. I love it so much. But there's only so much energy. So I can't be worried about people getting in and getting situated and all that, and then also be supporting. So anyway, yes, it's open now until Thursday, March 14th, Thursday at midnight Eastern time. And I'm going to go to questions, but just really quickly, there is a bonus for people who get in today. It ends at midnight tonight. It's all automatic. So at midnight tonight, that bonus will turn off. But for people who get in today on the first day, it's a really awesome bonus. You get a free 30-minute private coaching session with one of my coaches. So in addition to running the school, I mentor coaches, and I have some apprentice coaches who have been working with me for, it's going on 7 or 8 months now, really closely working with me, getting all kinds of feedback. They're great coaches. They get this understanding. They live this understanding. They've had their own change stories. And they are going to be scheduling 30-minute private calls with you if you get in by today, sometime in the next like 3 or 4 weeks. So we'll take care of the logistics, but you'll get to schedule a time that works for you. And that's a really great bonus because it allows you to get the most out of the school. So if you spend a couple weeks in the school and you'll be talking to me while you're in the school, but to have that 30 minutes with a coach to say, hey, here's what I'm seeing. What do you think about that? Or I'm confused about this point, or whatever it is, you get your own little personal deep dive. So it's a really awesome thing to consider if you're going to do it anyway. I really want this. What am I forgetting? I think I've said it all. Let me go to some questions. Keep putting them in if you have questions. I'll get to as much as I can here. Thank you guys for being here. Bonnie just put the link to the school. That's the registration page, and all the information, all the details are on that page. So yeah, it's just a little school big change. Easy to remember, but you have all the links in the chat now. I really appreciate you guys hanging out so long, and I know we're going over an hour, and I'm going to stick around and answer questions. So if you need to drop off, that's okay. But if you want to hang out, sometimes so much comes from hearing how some of these questions are addressed. But again, I know there's so much stuff out there. So many people selling this, talking about this, all these different fixes and all this advice. But I hope this sounds different to you. It really is different. I really do appreciate your time, because I know there's a lot pulling for your attention out there. Okay, let's see. I'm going to just kind of see if I can find the ones that are the most representative. So Sylvia says, so what do we do? Very common, excellent question, Sylvia. Recognize our thoughts, but don't identify with them. Accept they're there, but then ignore them. It might look like we do some of those things, Sylvia. Like that might, when we look back, that might look like what's going on is I'm recognizing like, oh, this is talking to me, but I'm not you. Or it might look like, oh, okay, I accept what you're saying, but I'm just gonna ignore you. But it isn't a doing at all. Like again, that might describe on some level what's happening, but that's not your responsibility to do. And that's a gigantic point. That's a really, really gigantic distinction, is that we do come to probably ignore, if you want to use that word, ignore our thoughts more and more. We do probably come to recognize our thoughts, but not identify with them more and more. That's not your responsibility. What happens is you wake up to what's true. You wake up to the fact that this has been talking your whole life. From the moment you were born, this has been talking to you, and it's not you. And when you wake up to that, you naturally ignore it. You naturally don't identify with it. It's like, example I always use is like, if it looks like, a kid says, "Oh, mommy, daddy, there's a monster in my room. There's a big monster in my room." Well, if you walk in and you say, "Look, it's a shadow," you flip on the light and you show them how these things are casting a shadow and it looks like a monster. Once they see that it's a shadow, like if they can really get, "Oh, it's definitely not a monster. It never was. It's just a shadow." Well, they don't have to lay in bed and tell themselves positive thoughts. They don't have to ignore their other thoughts. Like, they've seen it. You know. And that's more what this is. We become fluent. We see it. We wake up to it, and then you're not responsible for the ignoring or accepting or distancing or any of that. I know it sounds crazy. It's so different than what we're used to, but it starts to happen for you. Maddie asks how this understanding helps with health issues and chronic illness that isn't resolving. Hopefully, Missy spoke to that a little bit for you, but I'll just add that, we mentally, emotionally, physically, we're designed to do well. We're designed to thrive. We do pretty well. And where we don't do well is often we kind of innocently get in the way. So, like she was saying, we're like, "How am I doing? How's it going? How's my body? Where is flare up happening? Is it not happening?" Or we're just worried, or like how I described in my story. I mean, I just had all this heavy thinking that I just thought was me. And when you suppress anything like that with a bunch of heavy thinking that looks real, it's not going to work very well. And when you take the pressure off that, which is what this understanding does, it naturally works better. So, I mean, we all know this, right? When you are under a ton of stress, a cold is a really big deal and it could get a lot worse. And when you're, life is great, no big deal, you just have a cold. And that's a minor example, but that's essentially how this goes. When people are at peace and they know who they are and they feel like themselves and they know their experience isn't so big and personal, they just don't get as affected in that way. And everything that's designed to thrive and clear up starts to. Julie asked a question about being around this conversation for a while and seeing it on some level. And this is a really common question too, kind of knowing it. So knowing as a fact that this isn't you, knowing as a fact maybe that your mind is always talking and all of that. Um, but realizing it, the difference between knowing it and realizing it. And sometimes sometimes people are kind of pointed over and over and it takes a little bit longer. I mean, that's true of everything, right? And people don't all pop in the exact same time. So sometimes it's nearly instant. And that doesn't mean they're done. That doesn't mean it's the end of it. But sometimes people have insights, big insights really, really quickly, right? Sometimes it takes a while. Sometimes it takes longer. But I can tell you, Julie, and everybody with this question, that again, I've been sharing this for 8 years with thousands of people in all kinds of different ways and formats. And people do eventually see things that help. Even just in a little 6-week course like this, or in a smaller container, like I talk to people after they finish the course, and I don't know that I've ever had someone go through the little school of big change and say that they haven't seen something that's been helpful. That doesn't mean everything in their life clears up at all, but they come away saying, "Okay, there's something to this," or "I feel better, I see something." Now, that's just a little container of it, but I mean, we just kind of stay in this conversation. Again, to use the learning a language example, it's no different than that. My husband lived in Germany for 4 years and he swears up and down he is not a language person. He's not capable of learning language. Well, Yes, he is. We have that capability, but yeah, sometimes some people have some blocks. In particular, the thought that I'm not a language person. That'll get in your way. So, like we have stuff that gets in the way, but it's nothing to take that seriously. It's nothing to worry about so much because it's made of thinking. As soon as we start to relax, we do start to see this stuff. But the timing's different for everyone. But I've absolutely seen people be around it for kind of longer periods of time, maybe like you, Julie, and then they just, sometimes hearing it in different ways or from different people or taking a break, all kinds of stuff helps. But it's what we already know. It's within us already. So it's so much closer and more available than it seems. And people do eventually see something. Yes, anonymous person says, I'm always checking in on how I'm feeling. I felt peace and at home, but I soon move over to anxious thoughts again. Exactly. We all do. We all do. That, I mean, again, that's a perfect example right there, that comment of something that is universal. It's just the way a mind works. But when we don't know that it's universal, when it looks like it's a problem, or it looks like maybe we're doing something wrong, or it looks like it's about us, we suffer a lot. And it keeps on happening because we think it's a problem. When we see, oh, we all come home and then we all get caught up and then we all come home and then we all get caught up and then we all come home. That's life. That is human life all the time. The more we can see that that's human life and deeply know and trust that that's human life, it's just a non-issue. It's a non-issue. It's like, oh, I'm caught up. Honestly, I mean, think about that. Think about what that's going to do for your experience of being caught up and for your caught upness. Because if you're like, okay, all the time now, it's like, oh, yeah, my mind's working on that issue. Doesn't look like something I need to attend to. I need to respect. Doesn't tell me anything about life. It's just where my mind's gone. It just becomes background noise really quickly. But when it looks important, it looks like it's about you and it's meaningful, it can't become background noise. We keep it right here innocently. So, I mean, it's just the way we universally work. And that's what I mean. It's a perfect example to talk about that the more we just deeply see how we all already always are working, so much falls off our plate. So much falls off our mind. Like we're just in the moment in life, more like kids, just living life through a series of hunches and common sense and good ideas. And we're not in our heads so much thinking everything's a problem. Some of these are long, so I'm kind of going with some of the shorter ones because I just don't have time to read a really long question right now. Linda says, are there any limits to digging into childhood issues that may be affecting us? I'm not sure what you mean about limits, but that's not what we do here. So we don't have to look into we don't have to dig in, like I'm just that word, digging into childhood issues. Something from our childhood, something from your childhood might come to life for you right now, but we start to see, oh, it's a thought coming to life right now. My childhood's done and over. Not relevant. Not relevant right now today. What's coming up right now today is a memory, which is just a thought about something that's not happening anymore. So there's a big space around that. Memories start to look very, very different. Childhood issues start to look very, very, very different. Not ever to dismiss them, not to discount what we went through, none of that. Not to say, oh, just forget, that's not that at all, but it's honest about like just seeing it as it is right now, current, fresh, without all the attachment and story and pain. Right now, today, something that happened in the past, it can only show up in us right now today as a current moment thought, as a memory. It's not happening right now. And as we start to see that more and more, there's like a lot of I don't know, a lot of that resistance and fear and figuring it out just naturally falls away. Rosemary asks if the access to the message board is for life. So let me, it isn't, but it's for a while after the course ends. So you get access to all the recorded content for life. The message board, we keep it open. I think last time we kept it open for, I don't know, a few weeks, a month maybe to access after the course ends. But because that takes so much energy and stuff, it's a different feature. But what we do have is an ongoing community. So you'll hear more about this if you're in the school toward the end of your time there, because that's when it becomes relevant. But basically, for people who have been through the 6-week course of the Little School of Big Change at any point, they can join our bigger community, which is an incredible place where we have our own forum there. We have regular calls. So I'm there all the time, leading calls, coaching, supporting people. We bring in guest speakers. It's an awesome community, again, from people from all over the world. They're very close. They're in each other's weddings. We send each other, birthday and holiday cards. And it's $39 a month. So it's a super affordable way. After the course is over, you can't join until you've been through the course, and then you can make a choice. You're not committed to that. But I just want to say, like, and Sue's there in our community saying, love our school. Thank you, Sue. Um, it is. It's an amazing place. We love each other and we get to be friends and we do things offline, have live meetups, and it's beautiful. And for $39 a month, I mean, that's you're not going to find personal support from a coach anywhere else for that. So, um, so we take your forum, your message board away, Rosemary, but then you have the opportunity to join the bigger community if you choose to. And Margaret asks, what happens after the 6 weeks finishes? That's what happens. If you choose to join us, I hope you do, then we just keep on going. And that bigger group, I mean, that's deep. So this 6 weeks, is like the hand holding, me making sure you're kind of getting up to speed to a certain place of fluency. And in that bigger group is where we go super deep. We have guest speakers from all over the place, and it's really awesome. Emily asks, is this a religious program? It's not religious. Um, it is spiritual. So we do, we're looking at in a totally non-religious way, because religion is beliefs and, dogma and that. There's none of that in here. But it's looking at what's true of human beings beneath our psychology, deeper than our thoughts, feelings, and behavior. And that's what people would probably call spiritual. So we look there to our bigger essence, but there's no religion, and there's people from all kinds of religions in the school, and just not even in the school, but just that follow this understanding in a bigger sense, and they get so much. Jane asks, is this the mindfulness process? No. No. Mindfulness, as I understand it, and I'm no expert in mindfulness, but this is an understanding. So there is no, absolutely zero, uh, do this. There's no watch your thoughts. There's no like, think of it this way, or there's none of that. There's just looking at how we work. We are health. We are freedom by nature. We are resilience. We are clarity. And stuff, human stuff, thoughts, feelings, behaviors move through us and they move on out totally on their own. So we start to see how we work and what's, just how we work. And we really get a deep feel for that. Mindfulness, again, and maybe I'm biased in what I've seen of it, but it's often practiced, which this isn't. It's more about the mind and the thought piece, where this goes so much bigger than the mind and thought piece. So it's definitely, it definitely is different. There's some overlaps, I'm sure, but it is different. Claire says, can you speak to habitual thinking and how to stop it? Now, all of our thinking, so much of our thinking is habitual, right? And you don't stop it. If you could stop your brain from being on repeat mode, you'd die instantly, because your brain is repeatedly telling your heart to beat and your lungs to breathe and all kinds of things that are beautiful that we want and need. And even our habitual thoughts that are just more like we don't want to manipulate or change. It's more about seeing that we have an incredible design. We have so much going for us, you guys. We just don't We've just been pointed toward problems and fixing problems. So, and that's what this question is, and that's okay. That's where we're all pointed, right? How do you stop my habitual thinking? You don't stop it. You come to see, oh, not me. I'm not you. You're not me. This happens. There's a whole other me over here. There's another place to be. You feel home. And this can go on all day, every day. When you feel at home, you don't care what this is saying. You wouldn't waste your energy trying to stop it. It's like a TV on in the background. It's like I can argue all day, every day that I hate the shows that my husband plays and they're ridiculous, or I can just go on with my day. I wouldn't give energy to arguing with them. It's become background noise when I do. Not saying I do that perfectly, but it's just background noise. And that's how our habitual thinking becomes. When we see it for what it is, it truly starts to become like background noise. You wouldn't waste your time trying to change it or fix it, and you can't anyway. Um, Regina says, can this program help alleviate anxiety symptoms and fears of over 40 years time? Absolutely. Or 40 minutes, 40 seconds, or 4,000 years. Time doesn't matter. The only thing that time matters in is that you've gotten really used to those habitual thoughts. But when you see them for what they are, it doesn't matter if they just showed up yesterday or if they've been around for 40 years. Who you really are beneath all that is so big and so strong. It's not worried about a 40-year thought habit. Trust me. It holds no candle to that. So yes, I've seen this help people who have been caught up in habits for the record was 60 years. She was almost 80, and she had eating issues, pretty serious eating issues since she was a teen. I think she was in her late 70s when she came across this, and she said, "You've probably never helped anyone who's had their habit for 60 some years." And I said, "Well, I haven't yet, but let's give it a shot." And so, absolutely, time doesn't matter. Catherine says, I joined the school today. Yay, I'm happy to have you, Catherine. So I have a question. I'm really bad at describing and discussing in detail my thoughts and problems and feelings, mostly because I think I'm boring the other person, but also because I'm bored of them also. Well, that's good, Catherine. You don't want to get too entertained by your own thoughts, especially your problems. That's good if they're looking boring to you. Can I still be helped and gain improvement even if I'm really bad at talking therapies? Well, yeah, because this isn't a talking therapy, so no problem there. Notice on other webinars, participants going into great detail about problems. Yeah, and that's just what we've been taught to do, but that's not necessary for any of this. Not at all. Like you don't ever have to say a word. A lot of people go through the school and don't actively, like they're at work during the day. They can't be on the calls. Maybe the forum's a little overwhelming for them, so they don't go there. They just listen to this. That's what happened to Missy. They just start to hear these truths and things clear up. So, no part at all, and I want to say this to everyone, no part of your success in this program, in seeing this understanding, however you take it in, hinges on you being able to talk about your problems. It literally is like just a different universe. Like that has it's not relevant in the least. This isn't about talking. It isn't about looking at problems even. It's about seeing your health, about seeing what's really there beyond what you think are problems. Seeing what's there, not looking at the problems, looking at how all human beings work. So it requires nothing of you. Honestly, you have to be open and you have to take in the information. You have to listen, but you don't have to talk. You don't have to participate. None of that. In fact, you might be better off, Catherine, for not being so ready to talk about your problems. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but again, it's just like sometimes that's where our mind goes, right? Like, oh, I need to get this out. And, it's just how it goes sometimes. Um, okay, let me go to the chat, and I apologize. I know there's um, some of these are kind of long. Okay, so I want to speak to Kim's question. I won't read it all, but she's basically saying that she's come across some of these concepts that I'm sharing and has really studied them over the last 20 years or so. So sometimes this, I don't know if you mean like this understanding, Kim, or like Buddhism or things that have some overlap with this understanding. Um, but anyway, but she says it resonates more than any self help technique she's ever learned. However, it hasn't really stuck or taken permanent hold, and she's asking um, what she might want to do differently this time in order to have a different experience, which is an excellent question. So, what I recommend for anyone, if you're joining the school, if you if you're just listening to things around my podcast, other books, other people's podcasts around this understanding, the best thing I think we can do, there's probably a few ways to answer this, but I think the number one thing is just show up and don't bring all the stuff that you think you know. Show up dumb is and I'll talk about that in the school. As my mentor always used to say to me, like, you're just too darn smart. You need to be dumber. Because I would come to our calls wanting to see how life worked, but with my mind full of, okay, but what about this? And what about that? And what about here? And he's like, you're not hearing me. You're hearing what I'm saying. He's like, I'm telling you the truth about life, and you're taking it and trying to make it shape and fit this theory and that thing you learned and all that other stuff. And that's not it. That's not it. That's our mind. That's this guy in charge of our trying to make insights happen for us. So get really, really dumb, Kim. Forget the last 20 years. Pretend you know nothing. Pretend you've never heard of any of these concepts, and just be a complete beginner, which I'm sure you've heard before. And don't try too hard. Don't try too hard. Just be dumb and show up and see what lands. And I think that'll help. And if you do come in the school, reach out to me, and I'm happy to talk to you about this, on the forum or a call, and really kind of get your head empty as much as we can, because it makes a huge difference. Okay, another great question. In order to receive this understanding or have insights about this, is it best to stop doing the things we've tried to do before to help our issues? So, for in the case of anxiety for this person, to stop the deep breathing or journaling, not necessarily. Honestly, I think that stuff will probably just fall away naturally as you see this. And maybe it won't, because some of those are great practices. So if journaling really is helpful and feels super good to you, then you'll keep journaling. There's nothing wrong with any of those practices, but we tend to pick them up and do them as a fix, So if that's what's happening, and it probably is for maybe at least some of them, if you're doing it to try to just fix or get you somewhere and they're not actually that helpful, the more you see your health, the less need you'll have for that. It won't make sense to do that anymore. And so just let them fall away. They'll prune themselves. Let them prune themselves. And if you keep doing some, then maybe you just really like them. It's not a problem. Okay. So that's some of the Q&A. I'm going to go over, just scroll through some of the chat comments and see if there's anything great that I missed. I love all the hellos. Yes, I addressed that. Sylvia asked about the book. If the book, my book, I assume the Little Book of Big Change, is similar to the school, and it is. I mean, I'm writing a new book, so I'm kind of over that book. But it's helped a lot of people. If you can't join the school, go ahead and start with the book. I also would recommend my podcast, because that book's 5 years old. I mean, I shouldn't be talking down about my book, but the podcast is more recent. The school is more recent. It's just the most up to date, kind of has the most life to it to me. Like, this is how I see things in real time. And the book's just a little bit older, but it's a good book from what I hear. It's helped a lot of people. So there's overlap, but they're definitely different. Have you had any experience, Ricardo asks, with narcissists with the 3 principles? My understanding is that they wouldn't believe that they need help to begin with. That's probably true. Just curious if you've had any come through your program. I'm sure I have. But nobody who's like, I'm a because you're right, Ricardo. No one's shown up and said, I'm a narcissist. Can you help me not be one? Because that's not what narcissists say, right? But it's a great question, because it kind of brings up, these personality issues. And what is narcissism? Narcissism is a perfectly peaceful, loving, healthy, resilient, at ease, secure human being, because that's what all 7.5 billion of us are, with a lot of insecure thinking that looks really, really real to them. So in that way, and we've seen this with schizophrenics, I'm sure, again, I can't remember, but I'm sure it's happened with narcissists, with any personality thing like that, or anything related. Like, we speak to their health. When you're in this school, I don't care about your narcissism. I'm speaking to your health. I don't care. I don't mean that like I don't care, but I'm not speaking to your addiction. I'm not speaking to your OCD. I'm not speaking to your panic attacks. I'm speaking to your health, because that's who you are. That's the part of you that's stable and real. So that's all I really care about. And it's the part of you that's right there wanting to come back to the surface. The fleeting stuff, I'm not wasting my time with that. I'm speaking to your health. And so I know if we had a narcissist, they have a lot of this in it, and they are tied to it. It looks like just this is just life. But then again, we all are in our own way. I would speak to that person's health, and I'm pretty confident something in them would feel or hear something. Would all this fall away? I don't know. No, it sounds good though. But it's no different ultimately than anything any of us. Jane says, how does ignoring really overcome physical symptoms that are debilitating? That's not what we're saying. No one's saying ignore a physical symptom. We're talking about seeing it with fresh eyes, seeing it for what it is, and not even the physical. It's not like the physical symptom and ignoring it. We're looking at the level of our experience. So we only experience physical symptoms through our thinking, right? Thought that's brought to life in this moment. When we see that different, it's this guy that says, oh no, this hurts, this is bad, shouldn't be happening. As we see this differently, our, so much just falls away, like that weight and the seriousness and the, I have to fix this. It naturally starts to fall away. It's not ignoring, it's seeing clearly. And so that starts to fall away, and our health starts to come back to life. It comes back to the surface, and we're designed to thrive. We want to grow toward the sun. So it's just about removing, mental garbage and stress and all that stuff we live under. And it's just kind of, I think that's pretty well accepted common sense, that if you have a person with no stress who has a totally clear mind, they're going to probably feel pretty healthy compared to somebody who doesn't. This, they might not have cancer, or they might not have something, a growth somewhere. I mean, there's physical stuff that happens, but even in that, their resilience, their immune system improves, their resilience improves, their experience of their physical stuff totally different. So that's what it is. It's seeing clearly. It's not, definitely not at all ignoring. Nothing about this is about burying your head in the sand, trying to see things differently. Not at all. Yes, the cost of the class is $377. So it's, for 6 weeks, and you get to keep all of that content for life. I always try to keep it really, really affordable. I don't know about the Canadian exchange rate, but you can put that in an app and see what it is. Talk to me offline if you want to, but that is the cost. And the beautiful thing about it too, again, I run the school every year. Once you've been through the school, this guided course, and you've taken the 377, you've had me walk you through the whole thing start to finish. You can be in our bigger community, but as I run these courses twice each year, you get to rejoin and redo it again for a really, really low cost. So this time, like starting today, when we open the doors today, all kinds of people who went through the school before are coming back and like, hey, I want to go through it again, because that's the thing about this is we see more every time. You have a bunch of insights at first, but then you live your life, and then you come back again and you see and hear things you didn't see and hear the first time. So that's a really awesome thing about it, is that it is kind of a lifelong thing in a sense. There is a fee, but it's $49 this time. Who went through it before to come through again. So it's kind of like, you get that access for that's the cost. And again, the registration page at the littleschoolofbigchange.com, The link is here in the chat, but it's pretty easy to remember. It's open. All the information's there. If you have any questions at all about anything, just reach out to me. I'm on my phone and email all week until midnight Thursday answering those questions. Lisa, I think, I can't see your name. Did your training in traditional psychology, do you ever see a time when this understanding is taught mainstream? If what you mean is, do I ever see it in my fantasies in the future? Yes, absolutely. I would bet my house today that by the time I have great grandchildren, hopefully sooner, we're going to wake up to this. We, meaning society, we're going to see, wow, it does not work. No wonder psychology is in this huge crisis, and the things that we thought worked don't work, and just medicating everyone and going into the past, spending months and years sometimes in therapy talking about the past. Duh. Like, of course we all do it. I did those things too. I'm not saying duh to you, but that's not where freedom comes from. Digging into regurgitating things that are over and or medicating a feeling, it has nothing to do with peace of mind. Those have nothing to do with freedom. And I totally see this change happening. The mindfulness question, I mean, mindfulness is one step along this path that's getting us a lot closer. And that's taught in schools now. My kids have meditation breaks. They go to public schools too. It's nothing fancy, but they have little meditation, little mindfulness things in first and third grade. So mindfulness is mainstream. Now this takes it a level deeper, a big level deeper. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm very excited about this, as you might tell. That question is like my favorite topic in the world because I just know what's coming. And we are on the front edge of that, like the front line of watching this happen. Could geek out all day. Super, super exciting things happening in the world of psychology and self-help and mental health, just seeing that we're okay already. So if you get onto this now, you will be way ahead of the game, which is awesome. All right. Well, I think that's about it for the questions. I love you who stayed on this long. So thank you so much. And then everyone else is probably going to listen to the recording and hopefully listen to this point. It's been awesome sharing with you. I really, really hope that this has been helpful to you, that no matter what you do about school, I'd love to see you there. But if it's not for you right now, I just hope this has kind of woken up something new in you and shown you something that maybe you didn't see before. It's really good. It's really good news, honestly. Like we have so much more going for us than we think we do. Our problems are not what they appear to be. So we can just start to look in that direction. It comes to life. I see it all the time. So I'd love to see you in the school. Let me know what questions you have. Get in today if you can, so you get that private coaching call. And thank you so much for being here and sharing. Bye, everyone.